You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Brian Kelly met with the media on Monday to recap Southern and really turn the page to Mississippi State. Now, there's a few things personnel-wise that are notable. Number one is John Emery, of course, who, after serving a 2-game suspension after missing all of last year as well, is preparing to return for LSU this week. Here's what Brian Kelly had to say about having John Emery back.
We're excited about getting John back, certainly, and I'm excited for him. You know, it's been a long run for John in terms of getting a chance to get out and play for LSU. He's worked hard to get back into this position, and now he gets an opportunity. Now, let's be careful. Now, he's been off for a while. So, you know, to put a lot of expectations on him in the first game, we certainly can't do that. You know, we've got other backs that have done really well, but he will be part of the mix, and make no mistake about it. We've seen his capabilities in camp. We've kept him active within our rotation, so he's ready to play, and we did that with, you know, obviously our eyes toward the SEC competition coming up, so we're excited to get him back.
LSU ran for 230 yards against Southern on 36 carries. It's over 6 yards an attempt, but there's a little bit of an asterisk there. Of course, you had an 18-yard scramble by Jaden Daniels. You had the 42-yard end around by Kayshon Boutte. Your running backs, Armani Goodwin had 12 carries for 85 yards. That included a 38-yarder. And Noah Kane had 10 for 51, including his long was 11 yards. So those guys got going a little bit against Southern, but still, against Mississippi State, you know you're going to have to control the clock. And a competent running game is going to be a huge part of that. And having John Emery back certainly helps. I'm going to come back to that with the offensive line in just a second. But Brian Kelly was also asked about B.J. Ojulari, who did not dress against Southern.
Is B.J. Ojulari going to be available this week?
We expect him to be available, based upon my conversations with our doctors yesterday.
That's fantastic news. Look, Ojulari got injured early in the game against Florida State. He did return and played the rest of the game. It was just a very obvious spot where you could hold him out against Southern, still win 65-17, and get him ready for the start of conference play. And if it's a thing we've seen where they got to manage it all throughout the year, we've seen this before. You know, I hate to say this, but like in 2016, we saw this with Leonard, where Leonard had an ankle sprain in camp. He gave it a go against Wisconsin. They held him out in the lower non-conference games. He tried to go when he could. It was just a on-again, off-again thing. You hope that doesn't happen, and you hope it doesn't linger for BJ throughout the year. But you have these opportunities to hold him. You play him against State, then maybe you hold him out against New Mexico if he needs it. We'll see, and you cross that bridge. But the good news is it looks like they'll have him, and they were able to also get other guys experience, you know, this past weekend. As far as defending this Mississippi State offense, this is the last 2 years we have seen two pretty polar opposite results against Mississippi State. Of course, in 2020, KJ Costello came in, set an SEC record, threw for over 600 yards in Baton Rouge. It was horrible. It was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It was all of those things. Bo Pelini was dreadful. They ran man the whole game. They never got off of it, and Mississippi State just completely abused LSU as a result. A year ago, LSU won the game 28-25, and Will Rogers threw for 371, but it's one of those things where you have to not focus as much on the passing yardage because you just understand that's how they go about their offense. They threw for 371, ran for 115. LSU was outgained by 150 yards in the ball game, but still managed to win 28-25 in Starkville. So you almost can see that you're going to give up yards, and you know you're going to give up yards, but tackling is so important. And Brian Kelly, a big part of the conversation with him on Monday was preparing for this offense and familiarity and how to defend it and all that stuff. And I did ask him about, his relationship with Mike Leach. And one of the interesting things he said is that, while he's never coached against him, just give a listen to how he described their relationship.
I've known him for quite some time. Obviously, the tree that he's in have many acquaintances. I know him since the days that I was at Grand Valley State and he was at Iowa Wesleyan. You know, we shared a lot of common acquaintances in the business itself. So we've gotten a chance to know quite a bit about the offensive structures. And look, there's a lot of concepts that he's run that I was running about 25 years ago as well. So we have obviously run into each other many times along our careers.
That was fascinating. I asked that question, and I spent a lot of time looking to see if they ever crossed paths, because I was curious if Brian Kelly has ever faced Leach or the air raid before, and he hadn't as a head coach. But so look, they're running concepts that he was running back at Iowa Wesleyan 25 years ago. So there's a degree of comfort going into this game knowing Brian Kelly's not going to see anything he's not familiar with. And then there was this was a great answer as well when he was asked about all the different curveballs that could come with facing this offense.
I think perceptually that people think that there's a lot of curveballs, but this is dive, QB keep, or pitch. There's maybe 4, 5, 6 concepts that are run so well and so efficiently that if you get too cute on defense, that's where you get exposed. Try to do one thing to take it away. If you play too much man, if you play too much 3-man rush, if you try to be one-dimensional defensively, that's where you get in trouble. So this is really about trying to change up your looks, try to make it so they don't see the same thing every time, but they're going to run what they run. And they just run it better than you can defend it in 3 days of preparation. And again, I go back to that. I know you're going to get sick of the triple option analogy, but it's so true in that this is the air raid concept. They run it better than you can defend it in 3 days. So you better tackle. You better have a really good plan on some of the things that they really like to do. You're going to get exposed.
When he said that, it gave me from an LSU perspective, a great degree of comfort, because it's Brian Kelly faced the option every year at Notre Dame when they had to face Navy. So this isn't the option, obviously, but it's similar in the sense that you're facing something that isn't complex. There's only a few concepts. They just run it so effectively that in 3 days that you have to prepare for it, you're not going to be good enough to stop it at the level that they're efficient at running it. So that makes a lot of sense with the way he describes it, but it's also not something that's going to be new for him. I guess that's kind of the reality when you've been a coach for 32 years as a head coach and you've been all over the place. But did you hear him say, look, I mean, you can't get stuck doing one thing like playing too much man. Hello, Bo Pelini. And that's what happened in 2020. LSU played man the whole game. They never switched. And Mike Leach even said, I can't believe they kept throwing man. We just kept throwing over the top of them. I mean, they never switched. And it was embarrassing. But the other part is you got to tackle. And it sounds so elementary, but it's so true. In that offense, a 5-yard pass is the same in another offense as a 5-yard run. It's just how they move the football. So the key is you just can't let them break free and let a 5-yard pass become a 15-yard pass. You got to tackle, and that's something that LSU hasn't been great at so far through 2 games. But in my opinion, one guy who undeniably makes them better in that aspect, and specifically against this opponent, is Micah Baskerville. Brian Kelly did confirm that Baskerville, after the game on Saturday, said that he was going to be out initially for the first 2 weeks, but they appealed and found out Thursday before Florida State that he was good to go and to play. That explains why Baskerville was down the depth chart through much of camp. But today, Brian Kelly made no bones about it. They need Micah Baskerville on the field.
You know, he's got a unique skill set. He is really good in pass coverage. He's really smart. That doesn't mean he can't stop the run. He's not built to be a big-time plugger, but he'll stick his nose in there. He's not afraid. We saw that. His block punt was like teach tape. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, he bent, put the low hand out, took the ball off the foot of the punter. Some younger players would have run into the punter in that situation. So he's a smart, savvy football player and makes us better when he's on the field.
Smart, savvy football player makes us better when he's on the field. Micah Baskerville has to start. I'm going to say this bluntly. I don't know who you take off the field. I don't know if you take Mike Jones or Greg Penn off the field. I don't really care. I'll let the coaches make that determination. I think Greg Penn has been really good. I think Mike Jones has struggled early. I'd have Baskerville on the field along with Penn. The other one, they can do what you will on the inside. Baskerville's got to be on the field. A year ago in this game against Mississippi State, Damone Clark had 15 tackles. Damone Clark had 15 tackles against everybody. Baskerville had 11. He was second on the team with 11. He's played this offense. He knows this offense. He's had success defensively against this team. He's got that skill set that he's physical enough of a player to come stick his nose in and make plays between the tackles, but he's also athletic enough to turn and run with a tight end or a running back and cover him effectively. We saw the pick six on Saturday. He always has a way of being around the football. That's just been Micah Baskerville his entire time in Baton Rouge. And for me, Baskerville's got to be a starter. He's got to play 80% of your defensive snaps against Mississippi State for LSU to really have a chance to limit that team, because that's where you can absolutely be made vulnerable. The other change that they made on Saturday that Brian Kelly talked about was moving Greg Brooks from nickel to safety and Jay Ward down to the nickel spot, which seemed to solidify. Do you have that one? Can you play? Thank you. Please go ahead.
I think the corners have held up pretty well. Their play has been consistent. It's been on body. They've played the ball well in the air. I thought our tackling got better. Greg Brooks playing back at the safety position has enhanced our communication to the level that we felt really good about it. Putting Ward down, in a natural nickel position fits his game as well. So I just think the pieces were moved in the right place after that evaluation of Florida State and where we felt like we needed to get better. So communication on the back end was much better. The corner play continues to be solid, but they'll be challenged at a higher level certainly this Saturday.
The thing that continues to stand out to me is just a consistent reminder that Brian Kelly and this coaching staff are still learning this team. Not only is it a new coaching staff, but there was so much roster turnover as well. They're still trying to figure out who's best where. I mean, you're going into week 3 and you still have potential shuffles on your offensive line. After 2 games, you made a switch with a nickel and a safety. You're still rotating linebackers. Like, they're still learning about this team, which is why game 1 to game 12, I think they're going to be exponentially better. How many wins does that result in? I don't know. It's going to depend on how you play on a certain day. But I think you're going to see exponential growth with this team week 1 to week 12, because it's so clear this staff is still learning its roster. And I'll have a big test, obviously, Saturday with Mississippi State coming in. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.